Please be seated. Yes, Mr. Zivanovic.
Thank you, Your Honor. The witness was allegedly said by the Zvornik Brigade duty officer, I quote, that Vujadin Popović had arrived just at the very moment, end quotation. It is page 939, lines 18 to 25, transcript 20 June 2007. However, just at that time, or precisely around 8:30 p.m., PW 101 got the task to go to Orahovac. In that same span of time, he departed to Orahovac, stayed in front of the school, spoke with Drago Micic and certain Milosevic, waited the soldiers to take food and drink he had allegedly brought, and watched the embarking of the prisoners who would be transported to the execution site. It means that in that span of time, he was watching the execution and saw the officer similar to Popović there. In the paragraph 2452, the prosecution misquoted the testimony of Tanacko Tanic when he stated that he saw Popović at the Orahovac school. The witness testified that standing at the road, he saw Popović in the yard, and these people were unknown to him. He was told by a military policeman that one of them was Popović. He could not tell what the man looked like and time, nor did he know his rank. It is transcript 23 April 2007, page 337 to 338. According to Birčaković, Popović arrived there half an hour after the prisoners arrived. This evidence is in clear contradiction with the testimony of PW 138, who said that Popović led the convoy and reached Orahovac before the prisoners. It also endorses the defense submission that Popović did not lead the column of buses with prisoners because he would have arrived at Orahovac before the prisoners and not half an hour after them. Maybe we move again into private session, please.
Sure. Let's go into private session, please.
Over 1,000 prisoners in Ročevići school. None of the witnesses confirmed that, and the indictment states that there were approximately 500 prisoners in that school. The drastic increase of the number of prisoners in the school, the prosecution bases on the ICMP DNA update report from March 2009. The evidence of the witness PW 142 is not reliable since he just glanced inside the gym, so that he just thinks that the number was the same to the number of those in Orahovac. I refer to transcript page 462, 29 January 2007. However, it contains the obviously erroneous conclusion founded on the wrong generalization that DNA connection established between primary and secondary grave sites automatically means that all victims from these secondary graves were brought there from the same primary grave site. I refer to Dunić witness statement 1D 1447. So, according to Jan's conclusion, on the basis of 54 DNA connection found in secondary graves, he concluded that all 708 bodies were brought there from Kozluk. In respect to paragraph 2478, there is no evidence that the meeting the witness PW 165 testified about took place on 15 July 1995. On the day the ostensible meeting was held, PW 165 was working at the checkpoint in Ročevići until 17 hours, but he did not see any transport of prisoners to Kozluk. It clearly indicates that this date is wrong. The defense expounded this testimony of this witness in paragraphs 520 to 522 of its final brief, and therefore maintains its position that PW 165 testimony on the identification of Popović was erroneous. The defense also analyzed all evidence related to the alleged Popović activities related to the detention, transportation, execution, and burial of victims in the Kula Pilica Branjevo area. It is in paragraph 229 to 294 of the defense final brief. Sorry, 529 to 594. The defense denies the specific allegation by the prosecution that Popović was engaged at Kula school in the morning of the execution. The defense also analyzed the testimony of Slavko Perić in paragraph 540 to 542 of its final brief, who did not confirm that Popović was present at Kula school, but a person who looked like him. He also testified that he thinks that one soldier called the shorter of the two officers with nickname Popović. The witness said that he believed that he heard Popović. However, this evidence is not reliable for establishment of Popovic's presence in front of the Kula school, because the witness was not able to confirm that Popović was present at the school, although he knew him or that he was addressed with the nickname Pop. In addition, the last name Popović is common in the area, so that one of the members of the 10 sabotage units, Velimir Popović, I refer to Erdemović testimony for May 2007, page 946, lines 20 to 15, had the same last name. The member of this unit was also Boris Popov, who could have had the same nickname. I refer to Todorović testimony, 21st August 2007, page 040, lines 8 to 12. The submission of the prosecution that Popović was at the Kula school is not corroborated by the evidence mentioned in the OTP final brief. The defense analyzes all this evidence. The fuel issue was addressed in paragraph 543 to 562. The entry in the paragraph 563 to 566 and intercept evidence in 567 to 594 of its final brief. Neither of them confirms Popović present at the Kula school, as the prosecution submits by coordinating the execution of the Muslim prisoners at Pilica. The defense stays behind its arguments, pointing out that they are reinforced with the testimonies of Ljubo Rakić and Branko Bogićević, and absence of any evidence that Popović was seen at Branjevo military farm. None of the prosecution witnesses, and I refer to Slavko Babić, Jefto Bogdanović, Pero Petrović, Dražen Erdemović, testified that they saw Popović at the Kula school or at Branjevo. The prosecution also brought the witnesses who participated in burial of the victims, and none of them testified that got any order or instruction from Popović or that he even saw him at that place. I refer to the witness Damian Lazarević. In respect, the paragraph 25, 28, and 2529, where the prosecution stated that Popović issued the direction to the chiefs of intelligence and security in Drina Corps formation, banning indefinitely all reporters and cameramen from entering the Republika Srpska, the defense submits that it is normal that filming and recording during wartime is restricted, as well as the movement of foreign citizens, including journalists.
Okay, one moment,
Sorry?
Mr. Zivanovic. Line 5 of this page, in this page 75, amongst the witnesses that supposedly you mentioned.
No.
Is Dragan
Not
Obrenović.
Dragan Obrenović.
It was Erdemović.
Dražen Erdemović.
Dražen Erdemović. Okay, thank you.
The defense indicates that a similar ban was imposed by the ABH. I refer to 1D1091. So, the commander of the ABH Second Corps issued the order after noticed an increased activity by UNPROFOR and foreign journalists to collect information on ABH forces and possible plans for their deployment. In order to prevent such activities, he issued the order forbidding such persons to pass through from temporarily occupied territory and to travel from B&H controlled territory to temporary occupied territory. They were also banned to travel through the zone of responsibility without written approval of the Second Corps Command. Popović was not present at the execution in Bishina. The testimony of PW 172 was not accurate as regards Popovic's presence during the execution. The vehicle log, it is P197, reflects that Popović on that day left Vlasenica at 900 hours in the morning to Zvornik. The purpose of his travel to Zvornik was described in details by the witness Vlačić. He recounts that their conversation in Zvornik was suddenly interrupted, and Popović left Zvornik only after a telephone call. Popović emerged at Bishina 2 hours after the trucks with the prisoners had arrived. This was confirmed by witness Kojić and Čojić. PW175 testified that he wrote in his vehicle log the names of officers who signed it upon the request of the finance chief, who was not able to recognize signatures. He did it with block letters after his chief, who assigned him the task, identified the signatures. He also confirmed all the assignments he got from his chief. This means that it was not Popović who was in charge of operation, as the prosecution erroneously interprets from his testimony. He did it when he submitted the vehicle log to the chief of finance, who asked the witness to identify the signatures of on the vehicle log. It was not questioned who was in charge of the operation, because the witness never stated that he knew of that. This submission is corroborated by 2 of Popovic's other signatures for his assignment in July 1995. It was done for the days when he had no assignment related to any kind of security jobs or transportation of the prisoners or the members of 10 sabotage units, indicating that the signature was given just because Popović was the only available officer at that moment in the Drina Corps Command. The witness clearly testified that he did it only where the Popović signatures were, but also for all days he drove the minibus in July 1995. I refer to transcript page 796, 25 of March 2009. The prosecution's assertion that evidence related to Bishina confirms Popovic's presence at Branjevo military farm on 16 July 1995 is quite unsubstantiated. In the final brief, paragraphs related to the Popović individual criminal responsibility related to the Pilica-Branjevo execution, the prosecution never mentioned that Popović was present at the Branjevo military farm, but only at the Kula school and Pilica. There is no evidence that Popović was at Branjevo farm at all. There is not a single witness who testified to this or a single document confirming such an allegation. The defense considers that the evidence related to Bishina on 23rd July could not be used to confirm the charges against Popović on all execution sites where the prosecution was not able to prove his role and presence.
How much more do you have?
I will be finished by the end of the day, if you permit me.
How long has he already taken, time-wise? How much time? So that. See that the time limit by already 7 minutes. Let me confer with my colleagues. Now, by way of exception, rather than establishing a rule, we are allowing you to go on up to 5 to 7 minutes before the scheduled end of the sitting.
Thank you very much.
In other words, leave us 5 to 7 minutes.
Thank you very much. The prosecution did not even prove that any member of the Drina Corps military police was present at the Branjevo military farm, but that some soldiers had such insignias. In the light of the testimonies of Bjelanović and Vlačić, it is clear that such insignias were worn by almost all former members of the Drina Corps military police who were redeployed to the other units. So, the soldiers noticed at Branjevo military farm were not actual members of the Drina Corps military police because at the time Drina Corps military police was deployed at Kočari on combat operation and only a small number of them were available for military police tasks in Vlasenica. The prosecution asserts that Popović organized the transportation and execution of the Bishina victims despite evidence indicating to the contrary. Popovic's vehicle log indicates that he departed Vlasenica for Zvornik on 23rd July 1995 at 9 in the morning. It is P197. On that day, Popović did not carry out counterintelligence tasks. He was in civilian clothing and had to meet the commercial manager of the Vezionica factory, which produced the uniforms and insignias for the military police battalion. They had to resolve the problem with the insignias sewed on the uniforms because the soldiers, when redeployed, went with these uniforms and insignias to other units. They were seen by others as the members of the Drina Corps military police, despite the fact that they had ceased to be its members. It was as a result of this that the route of travel was written on Popovic's log on these particular days, since the places for the performance of counterintelligence tasks were not usually disclosed to members of the Corps Command. This was also done on 3rd July 1995 when Popović traveled to Ljubovia. The intercept referred to by the prosecution, it's P1313, indicates that Popović had already left Vlasenica at 9:04 that morning. However, the prosecution's interpretation that it also reflects that Popović went to Šekovići, to the Lieutenant Colonel Vlačić, is unsubstantiated and contrary to the evidence. Popovic's vehicle log demonstrates that Šekovići was not the place he intended to visit on the specific day. There is no evidence that Popović contacted Lieutenant Colonel Vlačić on that day. The witness statement of Slavica Vlačić, however, confirms that he met with Popović in Zvornik. It was before noon, but he could not say precisely when, and their meetings lasted about half an hour. It's 1D 1438. The preparation for the transportation of prisoners to Bishina started at 8:30 with the fueling of truck PW 172 draw on the day. The truck later proceeded to Bishina, where the executions and burials of victims took place. At that time, PW 175 left Vlasenica to Bishina and got back to Vlasenica at 10:15. It is P4432. At 10:30, he traveled again on the Vlasenica-Šekovići-Bishina-Šekovići route. In the minivan transported the 10 sabotage if the minivan transported the 10th sabotage detachment members, it means that they left Bishina before noon on 23rd July 1995. It further means that the passengers on the minibus completed their task at Bishina before the noon and went back immediately. It was confirmed by PW 172. It's transcript 10 March 2009, page 573, lines 7 to 10. The witness PW 172 testified that the executions took place very fast and that as soon as that was done, they went back and sat in the car and they left the location. Although it is not clear what kind of car was at the location which the execution used to leave, it is most probable that they did so immediately after they completed their task. According to the witness Vlačić, Popović suddenly interrupted his visit after a very short telephone conversation. He was seen in the civilian clothes at the building site of the Bishina barracks. In early afternoon, inquiring with the two witnesses, Kojic and Čojić, as to whether they saw where the military tracks went. The place was at the junction of the road. As such, he required information to determine where they went and thereafter followed the direction indicated by the witnesses. Čojić stated that Popović arrived at the building site in Bishina about 1300 hours. It is 1D 1439. Kojic also stated that Popović came to Bishina building site between 13 and 14 hours. It is 1D 1446. If Popović was there early in the morning, as the prosecution asserts, he would not seek information as to where the trucks went. He would know the place of the execution. However, the whole event obviously became known to him after his telephone conversation at Vlačić's office from the Vezionica Zvornik, and he managed to arrive at the location only when the executions had been completed but the burial was underway. The defense admits that PW 172 was not only in a state of shock but also in a state of fear of his own criminal responsibility due to his acts and conduct. At the time of the execution, he was present with two young soldiers upon the oral order of his commander. Apart from them, there were the unknown soldiers from 10 sabotage unit who left the place immediately after the execution, and also an unknown driver of the machine performing the burial. At the time, he felt that he could be responsible for the events, given that none of the officers was present. The coming of Popović was a kind of relief. He could protect himself because of Popovic's position of authority, although he was not present at the executions. The testimony of this witness obviously confirms that Popović did not organize the transportation and execution of the 39 Muslim prisoners at Bišina. The witness agreed with the position of the defense that Popović did not have anything to do with the transportation of the prisoners from Sušice and Šekovići to Bišina. It is transcript page 598, lines 2 to 7. The witness is another part of his testimony clearly indicates that Popović did not organize the execution of Bišina victims. The witness testified that when he asked Popović after the execution what happened, the Popović did not answer. The witness saw the tears in his eyes. It is the submission of the defense that an individual who organized the execution and worked to complete such a task would not cry once he completes his task. The tears in Popovic's eyes, which the witness spoke of, indicate that execution of these Muslims was a shocking surprise for Popović too. The defense would also like to explain why the Popović vehicle log for 23 July 1995 does not indicate his travel to Bišina. The vehicle log was filed in advance at the beginning of the trip when he did not expect that he would go to Bišina. This also indicates that he did not participate in organizing the transport of and execution of Bišina victims. In the paragraph 2538, the prosecution submits that Popović implemented the command decision to kill the wounded from the military hospital. It refers to two intercepts, conversation and the testimony of PW 168. The content of the quoted intercepts was inaccurately and incompletely presented. In the first conversation, Pandurović sought instructions as regards both prisoners and the wounded. The part of the conversation in the respect of wounded was transcribed with considerable gaps. I refer to P1309. The next conversation refers to the previous one by saying that Popović would come by 1700 and convey what needs to be done regarding the work we talked about. This conversation did not mention the issue of the wounded prisoners alone, but also many other topics. At least 4 additional topics were raised in the conversation. The first related to secular and moderates. The second related to something that should be returned to Kosorić and must be ready right away. The third related to reinforcements. The fourth related to the time General Krstić had set for Legenda. In light of the aforementioned, the part of the conversation that Popović would convey what needs to be done regarding the work we talked about is not necessarily related to the wounded as the prisoners, as the prosecutions misrepresents it. May we move to the private session, Your Honor.
Let's go into private session for a while, please.
Popović, however, did not convey anything to Pandurović on that or any other day. The Drina Corps Command had a better way of communication with its subordinate brigade commander, including protected communications and professional courier, than sending its assistant commander as the courier. It is, however, interesting to note how the prosecution would like to present Popovic's activities on 23 July 1995. In the morning hours and early afternoon, he ostensibly had a very delicate task to organize the transportation, murder, and burial of victims at Bišina. Immediately after that, he was transformed in the courier between an unknown command and the commander of the subordinate unit. Such distorted presentation was far from the reality and was created just for proving the unsubstantiated charges from the indictment. In respect to the paragraph 2550, it is correct that Popović got the task from his commander to go to Serbia and retrieve Muslim soldiers who fled there from Žep. However, it only proves that the task related to the prisoners Popović undertook was upon the order of his commander and only with the limits determined by him. It proves that the norms from the rules of service for security organ were fully implemented and that Popović had no tasks relating to prisoners in his purview. Popović did not participate in the reburial operation. The testimony of the prosecution plea agreement witnesses are not credible as explained in defense final brief. The prosecution misrepresented the ostensible intercept conversation from 22nd September to 1995, which shows Popovic's involvement in managing and overseeing the reburial operation in Zvornik. In that conversation, Popović asked his collocutor whether the fuel had arrived. It's P2391. He received information that his collocutor did not know anything about it, but that Trbić was working on it, and that on that specific day he could not, as not much of work could be done. Finally, Popović asked the other speaker to find out if the fuel was delivered and called the gas station to check. The conversation does not reflect in any way Popović managing and overseeing of the reburial operation, but instead the detection of abuses and illegal appropriation of fuel. The prosecution asserts that the fuel for reburial was delivered on 14 September 1995. This conversation took place 8 days later, after the fuel had been delivered. This conversation reflects Popovic's interest for fuel, which was to be delivered to the gas station of the Zvornik. The fuel approved on 14 September had already been delivered to the standard barracks as ordered in the document. There is therefore no logical conclusion that this conversation related to the same subject matter as the dispersal order for fuel delivered on 14 September. The fuel delivered on 14 September was assigned personally to Captain Trbić for a specific task by the main staff commander. Accordingly, this order made Trbić responsible to commander of the main staff directly and personally for the execution of this task. The order did not mention that he was responsible for the performing of such tasks through anyone else but to the commander who issued the task personally. As a result, neither Popović nor anybody else was authorized to seek any information about the fuel because they did not get such a task from the commander who issued the delivery order. This means that Popović asked about another fuel sent for the regular needs of the Zvornik brigade. We can... Just a moment, sorry. In respect to the paragraph 2565, the testimony of another prosecution plea agreement witness, Momir Nikolic, as to Popovic's involvement in reburials is also false. If the fuel for the purpose was delivered to Zvornik, as was shown with the document of 14 September 1995, it would be the same also for the Bratunec Brigade. According to the prosecution, in the case of Zvornik, the dispersal order was by the main staff commander directly to Captain Trbic, without any involvement from Popović. In the case of Bratunec, it might have been done in the same way, meaning that it was delivered to Momir Nikolic, who got same assignment as Trbic. The defense addressed its position about Momir Nikolic's testimony as regards the reburials and sticks to that. I'd just like to add that Momir Nikolic in his wrote in his additional statement, it is C2, I helped in exhumation and reburial operation to the extent I was ordered by my commander, Colonel Blagojevic, to whom I reported regularly at regular briefing meetings. This can be seen from the minutes of the briefing meeting of Bratunec Brigade on 16 October 1995. In my brigade, the task order was recorded as asanacija. I refer to page 4, last paragraph of C2. It clearly indicates that Popović, that Momir Nikolic got all his orders in respect to reburials from his commander, not from Popović. Otherwise, he would report Popović regularly, not his commander. He misrepresented the obligations he got, like Trbic, as regard the fuel, just to conceal his direct responsibility for reburials. Your Honor, I have just one more very short topic. It refers to ethnic animosity toward Muslims.
Finish. Come on.
Thank you very much.
Very shortly, briefly, please.
The prosecution's submission that Popović harbored a particular deep-seated ethnic animosity toward Bosnian Muslims because he used derogatory terms like Balija in referring Muslims is unsubstantiated. The prosecution has never clarified what the term Balija means. In fact, the exact term Balija was not known to many of the witnesses the prosecution examined. The witness Grulović, a journalist by profession working during the Bosnian War as the correspondent of Reuters television, I refer to his testimony, 756 page, 22 July 2008, was not able to explain the exact meaning of the term. The exact meaning of the term could not be explained by Vuga, although he agreed that it was mildly derogatory and appears in vernacular. Although such term was not appropriate in the official documents, it was commonly used in the VRS just as the other side used derogatory terms for Serbian sides. However, it does not reflect a deep-seated ethnic animosity toward Muslims. Many witnesses in this case testified that Popović had no hate towards Muslims and had many friends among them. Popović was the officer of the former GNA, educated in the military schools in the spirit of fraternity and unity as the crucial concept of the former GNA. His former superior and associates gave statements in this regard. Its reference is witness statements 1D 1318, 1320, and 1317. Witnesses Mićo Vajsavljević, Nermin Jusufović, and Boris Mažibrada. Just for a short time, if we can move to the closed session, to private session, please.
Private session, please. Yes, we are in open session now.
One of the witnesses Nermin Yusufovic, who is Muslim, stated that he met Popović in 1991 in the former GNA multi-ethnic unit. The witness was friend with Popović and they socialized at the time, and he never noticed Popović express any negative attitude towards people of other ethnicity or comment about their behavior or character. The second witness, Popovic's former commander, Micho Vlaisavljević, stated that he met Popović in 1978 after Popović graduated from the military academy. He was his superior from 1978 to 1992. He described Popović as the extremely pro-Yugoslav oriented officer without any intolerance towards to many members of other ethnic groups in the unit. The witness named some of Popovic's close non-Serb friends. Finally, the witness stated that Popović helped many people when the war broke out to get passports and leave the territory of Republika Srpska. He named some of them in his statement. Boris Mažibrad also confirmed that Popović had very good relations with people of different ethnicity. Witness Milan Vojnović, who had contacts with Popović, testified that he never felt any animosity from Popović towards other ethnic groups except towards armed formation of enemy. The witness Mikhailo Mitrović, who was Popovic's superior in the 2nd Krajina Corps, testified that there were members of the other ethnic groups in that unit, but Popović never showed intolerance towards them. Finally, the prosecution submission about Popović near pathological hate towards the Muslim is quite inconsistent with the testimony of PW 172, who saw tears in his eyes after the execution of the Muslim prisoners near Bishina. In light of the aforementioned reasons, I ask the trial chamber to acquit Mr. Vojadin Popović of 4 charges from the indictment. Thank you very much.
Mr. Zivanovic, Judge Kwan has a question for you.
Thank you.
Judge Kwan.
I was hesitating whether to ask this question or not, but I didn't find the time to ask this before. Do you remember when Mr. Svetozar Kosoric came to testify on 30th of June? During the course of cross-examination, he was shown a video in which Mr. Kosoric and Zoka and Mr. Popović took a picture. I'm not sure whether you remember that during the course of dialogue, Mr. Popović said that, come on, to the effect that, come on here, the entire OB is present. And then he said, the war criminals. I wonder whether you are in the position to answer in what context he said that.
I believe that it was recorded when all of them were a little bit tipsy, and it was a kind of joke, according to behavior of all of them, and according to behavior of Popović himself. It was my impression. I cannot give any other details, but that's it.
If you could explain why it was a joke. You can answer the question tomorrow.
Okay,
yeah.
Thank you.
So let's adjourn. I take this opportunity to thank the members of the staff, interpreters, technicians, and everyone for having been patient and allowed us to sit some extended minutes. Let it also be the practice that you should alert the trial chamber if at a certain point in time it becomes obvious that you're not going to conclude in 2.5 hours. I don't think we should be faced with a situation where we have to check, find out that you have already exceeded by a few minutes, and then ask you to leave us 5 minutes or 7 minutes, and you don't even leave us that. I don't think this should be a healthy practice in this tribunal, and you should try to avoid it by all means. Thank you and have a nice afternoon.
All rise for you, Fulvi.